So, Exiles. Um, Seen a couple character designs, and I've skimmed through a little bit of the news. A lot of it has to deal with Valkyrie and just the whole makeup of the team, an older version of Miss Marvel. Oh man, Marvel, every time I get excited and think y'all are gonna, you know, get out of your own way and do better, you disappoint me. um, so Exiles is one of those comics I'm not like a huge expert, but I have a couple of the issues. I also have some of Chris Claremont's New Exiles, which is fun for what it is. I like it. A lot of them I found in the discount bin because a lot of people just bring those in. It's always that Extreme X-Men, which isn't that great. In the Infinity comics with that led up to Crisis on Infinite Earths, the DC, and a lot of like Mr. Was it Captain Marvel and a lot of older new X-Men books. But Exiles was one of those stories. Mainly, probably why I liked it so much is that it kind of seemed around the mid 2000s. X-Men was just confusing. I'm gonna be honest. There's like so many books, so many different events, and I'm coming from a person that wanted to jump into the post Grant Morrison's X-Men, and there was points where I just gave up. Like I read the older stuff, like from the pretty much anything from the 80s, 90s to House of M. After that, there was so many events that you had to read. There's multiple X-Men books going on at the same time. It was it was too much. It was too much. You really had to actually find a reading list to figure what stories to read and which events connected in which timeline. It got to be a little too much for me. So I kind of would dip out of X-Men comics. I read like the first 25 issues of Astonishing X-Men. I tried to read past Joss Whedon's run. The art kind of threw me off, and I kept on reading. And I was like, I kind of don't care. But Exiles was fun because it didn't really matter about the continuity because you had Blink, I think, from her main continuity. You had was it Sync, and a couple other characters. I'm having trouble remembering off the top of my head, but they were all from different Earths or realities. So you didn't really have to worry about where does this fit in because they just had to make sure that the universe or all these realities wouldn't just converge on themselves and everybody be wiped from existence. Even for like the New Exiles run, you had Sabretooth, who was a good guy from his dimension. You had Psylocke from the main continuity. You had Kitty Pryde, but she was from like a different Earth. So it had some interesting stories where they would go up against or help join with the main continuity X-Men, or there's one story arc at the very beginning of the Exiles, the original one, where they were like, well, man, mutants are really in a bind. We're like getting hunted down. So they're like, well, let's find Professor Xavier, right? He'll be able to lead us. Plot twist, Professor Xavier was imprisoned because he was a homicidal maniac, and as soon as they release him, he just starts giving people like, I don't know, brain aneurysms or something with his mind control powers. I don't know, he's a telepath? I guess that's the proper term. So it was fun how they could mix and play around with things from the X-Men pantheon, those older comics, and how they would be able to. It's like, hey, what would happen if Mystique was a guy and was actually a good guy, but had this mysterious past? What would happen if Gambit was T'Challa and the Invisible Woman's son, and T'Challa was actually kind of like a cross between Namor? It was really weird, but you could get some. It was interesting. You got some neat things out of that. But my problem with it is, I feel like they're doing the same things over and over again, and I kind of hate to say it like this, but it's almost like the situation at Marvel is like gangrene, in which if you don't completely cut it out or get rid of it in its entirety, it'll just continue to fester. I'm not saying that there's no talent in Marvel. I'm not saying that there aren't any good writers. There's quite a few of them. But I think the biggest issue is that a lot of their flagship titles have just not the best writers, or they were good writers, but they constantly push their agendas. We know the whole story, so we don't have to go through that. But I don't know. I'm not really excited about this Exiles book. The character designs, even though they based Valkyrie off of Tessa Thompson's character from Thor Ragnarok, they don't. Like, they take her and then they just completely rearrange her character and interpret her completely differently. So I'm like, who's the audience for this? You know, someone comes in and you're like, oh yeah, they saw this movie, this Avengers movie or whatever. They saw Thor or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, this is Valkyrie. Well, that's not quite how I remember Valkyrie from the movies. Or Blink. Oh yeah, I remember Blink from the 90s. She'd pop up. But that's not how I remember Blink. It just all these random decisions, and it's a missed opportunity. This could be a really cool comic, but every time they get a really neat idea or something, they always have to ruin it with just projecting their own ideals. It's messed up, and I think probably one of the issues is because the ringleader, I don't know, because I'm just an average guy that just goes to the shop every couple weeks to get my comics. But you have guys like Tom Brevoort, Mark Waid, and Dan Slott, and others, and unless somebody just burns everything to the ground and just gets new artists and new people in, it's going to be the same situation. So yeah, I'm going to get my Cable book because John Mallon and Ed Brisson are on it. Yeah, I'm going to get my Marvel 2-in-1, and even though I got the first issue of X-Men, the Grand Design, I'm probably going to wait and get the trade, pick that up. But after that, I'm not really excited about anything. It's even the cover of Mark Waid's next issue. I was nervous. I wasn't going to read it because just seeing how Mark Waid is and how I've been tricked so many times to X-Men. I read the first issue of Astonishing X-Men, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. You've got Bishop in here. You got Psylocke. It's like 90s X-Men, minus the fact they have, Old Man Logan. Issue 2, I was like, well, this isn't too bad. You got Amal Farouk, the Shadow King. You get to issue 3, and you're just like, what's going on? And a couple issues go, and you're just like, why? How? So I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be bad. Makes me want to go read Exiles again, though, the older comics. So, man, I don't know. Maybe that's their whole secret idea. Let's make these comics so bad that people will go back and reread the older comics. I don't know. Hopefully, I don't know. It's kind of sad, a little frustrating, but maybe things will eventually work out. I gotta be at least somewhat positive.